What if everything Prince Harry thought he knew about his son was wrong? What if the boy he cradled, kissed, and promised to protect for life, the boy whose every milestone was celebrated across the globe, was not his biologically? Imagine the fear, the confusion, the heartbreak that would ripple through the life of a man who has already endured more public scrutiny, betrayal, and personal loss than most could bear in a lifetime. This is the storm brewing in the heart of Prince Harry, a storm brought into the light by one of the most relentless royal biographers of our time, Tom Bower, whose latest revelations have set tongues wagging, hearts racing, and questions flying across the world. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. In a story that reads more like a suspense thriller than the carefully choreographed life of a royal, Bower claims that Archie Harrison, the firstborn of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, might not be Harry's son. Yes, the boy introduced to the world with great fanfare, whose photos adorned magazines and whose smile lit up royal events, could biologically belong to someone else entirely. The implications are staggering. Not only does this touch upon the deeply personal, parenthood, family bonds, and trust, but it threatens to shake one of the most closely watched modern royal narratives to its core. Harry, the man who has lived his life under constant media scrutiny, now faces a scenario many parents can only dread: the possibility that the very identity of his son may be in question. The story begins not in the headlines, but in whispers. Whispers that first emerged when the internet buzzed with side-by-side comparisons of father and son. The casual observer might have thought them inconsequential, just another round of commentary on the physical traits of a royal child. But for those who know the weight of appearances in the monarchy, even the subtlest discrepancies can ignite curiosity, skepticism, and, eventually, speculation. It is a truth of the royal experience that looks are everything, especially when legacy and bloodline intertwine so tightly with public expectation. Archie Harrison, bright-eyed and tender, became more than a child. He became a symbol, a living emblem of continuity, hope, and the Sussex narrative. Tom Bower, renowned for his investigative rigor and for unearthing truths the palace would rather keep buried, has claimed that Archie shows zero resemblance to Prince Harry. According to his latest work, DNA evidence, corroborated by insider testimonies, suggests the boy's biological father could be another man, possibly someone from Meghan Markle's life prior to her union with Harry. These are not idle speculations, Bower argues. They are the product of meticulous investigation, compiled with sources who have chosen to speak under the condition of anonymity. Their motivations may vary, some loyal to the truth, others possibly with grievances against the couple, but the threads converge to paint a picture that is both explosive and deeply unsettling. For Harry, the implications are immediate and deeply personal. Parenthood is a bond beyond any title, beyond any public scrutiny. It is sacred, intimate, and unassailable, or at least it should be. Imagine the dread he feels knowing that whispers in the media could evolve into headlines that question his very role as a father. Each media cycle amplifies the fear. Each comparison of photos or videos intensifies the anxiety. And yet, Harry's life has conditioned him to navigate public judgment, to endure the glare of the spotlight. But nothing, perhaps, could prepare him for a revelation that strikes at the heart of family, identity, and the very essence of who he is as a father. The narrative, as Bower presents it, is chilling in its clarity. He details alleged insider accounts, conversations overheard, and documents obtained through channels shrouded in secrecy, including sealed court records that, according to some sources, may contradict the publicly acknowledged parentage of Archie Harrison. While the existence of these records has not been independently verified, their mere suggestion is enough to ignite speculation and fuel a frenzy of media coverage that sweeps across tabloids, social media, and even political circles. The question that now dominates conversations is not merely who Archie resembles, but who Archie truly is, and what the revelation of his identity would mean for the monarchy, the Sussexes, and the public's perception of the royal family. We must pause to consider the human element in this scenario. Prince Harry is no stranger to adversity. From the tragic loss of his mother, Princess Diana, to the relentless scrutiny of his every action with Meghan, Harry's life has been a series of trials under a global microscope. Yet, even with this experience, nothing could fully prepare him for the idea that his own son's parentage could be questioned in such a public, relentless, and intimate manner. It is one thing to endure criticism for decisions you make as a public figure. It is quite another to have your most private bond, a bond forged in love, protection, and responsibility, threatened by uncertainty, rumor, or revelation. At the same time, the story touches on broader societal obsessions with legitimacy, inheritance, and the purity of bloodlines, concepts that, while centuries old, continue to exert influence in the modern world. The monarchy, despite efforts at modernization and relatability, operates within these deeply ingrained expectations. The public is captivated by the idea of royal children, not merely as human beings, but as symbols of lineage, continuity, and the ideals of family. When the identity of such a child comes into question, it resonates far beyond palace walls. It becomes a topic of moral, social, and cultural fascination, drawing in experts, historians, and everyday viewers alike. But the tension does not lie solely in DNA or resemblance. It lies in secrecy, in the duality of public image versus private truth. Meghan Markle, navigating her role as a duchess turned global media personality, faces scrutiny not just for her actions, but for her entire past. Every relationship, every connection, every previous chapter of her life becomes fodder for speculation, magnified in a way few can imagine. The past, long thought settled, is now thrust into the limelight, intersecting painfully with the present. And in this intersection, Prince Harry's fear grows, not just for himself, but for Archie, for the narrative of their family, and for the emotional toll that comes with living under such relentless examination. In the coming moments, we will peel back the layers of this explosive revelation. We will examine Tom Bower's claims, assess the alleged evidence, and explore the intricate web of relationships, secrecy, and societal expectation that make this story so compelling. From the inner workings of the palace to the personal anguish of a father facing unimaginable questions, this is a tale that spans the intimate and the global, the human and the historical. It is a story that forces us to confront the uncomfortable intersection of truth, identity, and public perception, challenging everything we think we know about one of the most scrutinized families in the world. And yet, as shocking as the claims are, we are left with the lingering question: what is the truth? In a world of whispers, leaks, and partial revelations, how does one navigate the line between fact and speculation, between personal pain and public narrative? Prince Harry's fear is not just about media headlines. It is about reality colliding with perception, about the fragility of identity when subjected to global scrutiny. The truth about Archie Harrison, as Bower asserts, may forever alter the dynamics of one of the world's most watched families, forcing both the public and those involved to confront questions no one anticipated. By the end of this video, you will understand not only the full scope of Bower's allegations, but also the profound emotional and societal implications they carry. We will delve into the evidence, the testimonies, and the reactions, tracing the story from its quiet beginnings in palace corridors to the explosive revelations that have captivated audiences worldwide. You will witness the fear, the tension, and the complex human emotions that lie at the heart of a story that is far more than tabloid fodder. It is a study in identity, trust, and the enduring human need for truth. As the world watches, the stakes could not be higher. This is not merely about royal titles, privileges, or the intrigue that surrounds Buckingham Palace. It is about the most fundamental human experience, parenthood. Harry, who has already navigated immense personal tragedies, is now confronted with a challenge that tests the very core of his identity. The idea that his son may not be his biological child is a psychological earthquake, shaking the foundations of trust, love, and familial bonds. And it is this tension, the intersection of public exposure and private anguish, that makes the story so devastating, yet so impossible to turn away from. Every revelation in this unfolding saga carries weight, and every reaction is amplified. Media outlets worldwide have seized on the story, dissecting every photo, every public appearance, and every subtle expression captured on camera. Analysts debate resemblance, historians weigh in on precedent, and social media becomes a courtroom where every commenter is a judge and jury. In this arena, the private pain of a father becomes public spectacle, the intimate realities of family life scrutinized and sensationalized in ways that are almost unimaginable. Harry's fear is compounded by the knowledge that no statement, no denial, and no personal appeal can fully shield him or his family from the relentless gaze of a global audience. For Meghan Markle, the situation is equally precarious. Her every move, every public statement, every carefully curated appearance is now reinterpreted through the lens of these explosive claims. Questions about her past relationships, her decision-making, and even her motives for joining the royal family swirl like a storm around her, threatening to redefine public perception. The tension between maintaining a public persona and managing private consequences has never been more acute. While the palace remains a place of tradition and secrecy, Meghan must navigate a new, uncharted terrain where personal history, alleged secrets, and legal intricacies intersect with the gaze of a world eager for scandal. The emotional complexity of this situation cannot be overstated. There is fear for Archie, whose innocence and well-being are now inadvertently caught in the crossfire. There is guilt, confusion, and a profound sense of betrayal that may be experienced by Harry and Meghan, depending on how the truth ultimately unfolds. And there is the public, whose fascination with royalty, family secrets, and scandalous revelations fuels the relentless demand for more details, more evidence, and more certainty. In a story where the lines between fact, rumor, and speculation blur, the emotional stakes rise exponentially, creating a narrative that is as compelling as it is unsettling. It is also essential to consider the historical and societal dimensions of this revelation. The monarchy, both as an institution and as a cultural symbol, operates under intense scrutiny. Bloodlines and lineage have always been central to the continuity and legitimacy of the royal family. To question the biological parentage of a royal child is to challenge centuries of tradition, expectation, and societal investment in the institution itself. The ramifications extend beyond personal anguish. They ripple through the corridors of power, media narratives, and public consciousness, forcing a re-evaluation of assumptions and beliefs long held about the monarchy, its family, and its place in the modern world. And yet, amid all the speculation, all the media frenzy, and all the public debate, the core of the story remains heartbreakingly human. At its center is a father, unsure of his son's biological identity, grappling with fear, doubt, and the overwhelming need to protect the child he loves unconditionally. At its center is a mother, navigating the pressures of public life, while facing questions about her past that could redefine her family's future. And at its center is a child, unknowingly at the heart of a storm he does not yet understand, whose innocence and welfare are paramount even as the world watches and speculates. This story, as it unfolds, promises to reveal more than just contested parentage. It will reveal the fragility of identity under public scrutiny, the weight of familial bonds tested by circumstance, and the extraordinary pressures faced by individuals who live their lives under relentless observation. It is a tale that will evoke empathy, anger, and fascination, compelling viewers to consider not only the scandalous possibilities, but also the profound human truths that underpin them. The suspense, the emotional intensity, and the moral complexities make this more than a royal controversy. It is a meditation on trust, love, and the human desire for certainty in an uncertain world. By the time this video reaches its conclusion, you will have witnessed the emotional journey of a family pushed to the edge, the intricate web of allegations and evidence that have emerged, and the global conversation that now surrounds one of the most intimate aspects of human life, the bond between parent and child. You will see how secrets, whispers, and alleged documents intersect with the lives of those who can least control the narrative, and how a single revelation has the power to shake not only individuals, but also centuries-old institutions. You will come to understand that this story is not simply about Meghan Markle, Prince Harry, or Archie Harrison. It is about the enduring human struggle to protect truth, preserve love, and confront fears that strike at the very heart of our identities. As we step into this narrative, prepare to be immersed in a world where facts are contested, loyalties are tested, and emotions run as deep as the stakes are high. Prepare to explore a tale of parental fear, public scrutiny, and the relentless pursuit of truth in the midst of a storm that has captured the attention of millions. And remember, what you are about to witness is only the beginning. The revelations, the consequences, and the heartbreak that follow will challenge everything you think you know about this family, this child, and the extraordinary circumstances that have brought them to the center of global attention. The moment the news broke, it felt as if the world had collectively paused. Headlines screamed from London to Los Angeles, each vying to capture the explosive claim that Archie Harrison, Prince Harry's beloved son, might not be his biological child. For a family accustomed to scrutiny, this was unprecedented territory. Royals are no strangers to public opinion, scandal, or rumor, but nothing could have prepared Harry for the personal and profound implications of Tom Bower's revelation. Bower, a figure renowned for his meticulous research and controversial exposés, had delivered a claim that struck at the very heart of Harry's identity as a father. Imagine, for a moment, the intimate, private moments Harry had shared with Archie. The first time he held him in his arms, the nights of lullabies, the small hands grasping his fingers, the quiet conversations of a father marveling at the miracle of his child. Those moments, sacred and unshakable in Harry's memory, were now overshadowed by a looming question. Could Archie truly be his son? The claim of zero resemblance is not merely about physical appearance. It is a statement loaded with psychological weight. Parents naturally look for connections, eye color, facial features, gestures, even expressions that mirror their own. To have someone, particularly a public figure with a reputation for exposing truth, publicly suggest a total absence of resemblance is a blow that no amount of media training can soften. The immediate fallout was chaotic. Friends and close confidants describe Harry as visibly shaken in the days following Bower's report. Insiders suggest he spent hours poring over photos of Archie, scrutinizing every image, every smile, and every resemblance, or lack thereof, to see if there was any evidence to contradict the claim. Meghan, ever the protector, reportedly attempted to shield him from the media onslaught, encouraging privacy and patience, urging him to consider that accusations, even from credible sources, do not always equate to reality. But the public arena is relentless, and once a story of this magnitude emerges, it cannot be contained by family boundaries, palace walls, or carefully worded statements. For Harry, the fear was not only about personal reputation, it was about the emotional safety and future of Archie. A child's identity is inherently tied to parental bonds, both biological and emotional. When the question of paternity becomes public, it can destabilize not only the parent-child relationship, but also the broader sense of familial security. Friends have revealed that Harry's initial response was a mixture of disbelief and anger. The anger was not aimed at Bower alone. It extended to the wider mechanisms that allowed such a claim to reach global audiences. The sense of violation was immense. Private life turned into public speculation, personal anguish broadcast for millions to analyze, debate, and sensationalize. Bower's allegations were not made lightly, either. The book included claims of DNA evidence and insider testimony, suggesting that Archie's biological father may be someone from Meghan's past. The report cites sources close to the family, unnamed but described as trustworthy, providing testimony that allegedly supports the claim of a different biological parent. In the world of investigative reporting, such claims require a careful balance of verification, corroboration, and narrative framing. Yet, for those consuming the story, the impact is immediate. Questions arise naturally. Who could this person be? Why was this hidden? Was Harry intentionally misled, or was he an unwitting participant in a more complex story? Each question fuels anxiety and speculation, compounding the emotional weight already present for the family. The physical resemblance, or lack thereof, has become a focal point. Analysts, photographers, and casual observers alike began comparing images of Harry and Archie, cataloging similarities and differences. While human beings naturally inherit a combination of features from both parents, Observers were quick to highlight traits that seemed incongruous, drawing public attention to small facial features, expressions, and gestures. In a society that places immense emphasis on visual confirmation and superficial cues, these comparisons take on outsized importance. Harry, known for his sensitivity and awareness of media influence, is acutely aware of how these discussions could shape public perception, potentially undermining the legitimacy of his role as a father in the eyes of millions. Yet, physical resemblance is only one dimension of the story. Beyond appearance lies the emotional and behavioral connection between parent and child. Insiders suggest that Harry's bond with Archie is profound, formed through countless moments of nurturing, play, and shared experiences. Critics, however, can and do separate the biological from the emotional, framing the story in a way that questions the authenticity of Harry's paternal role. For Harry, this duality, biological uncertainty juxtaposed with undeniable emotional attachment, is a source of profound internal conflict. The fear is not merely of public perception, but of internalizing doubts that could undermine confidence in his relationship with his son. Complicating matters further is the intense scrutiny surrounding Meghan Markle's past. Bowers' claims hint at relationships prior to her marriage with Harry, suggesting that these past associations could hold the key to Archie's biological parentage. For a woman who has navigated the twin pressures of Hollywood and royalty, this is a deeply invasive allegation, suggesting that personal history, once private, now has the potential to define family dynamics. Meghan's history, choices, and past relationships are being dissected as if they are evidence in a case against her parenting or her marriage, a narrative that places both her and Harry under relentless examination. Palace insiders hint that the fallout from this revelation has initiated a series of closed-door conversations and emergency consultations. Lawyers, advisors, and family members have reportedly convened to consider the legal, social, and media implications of the claims. The potential ramifications span multiple domains, from personal emotional impact to legal custody questions, from media management to the global discourse surrounding the monarchy. For Harry, the personal and public crises intersect in an almost unmanageable way, demanding careful navigation while protecting the most vulnerable, the child at the center of the storm. Even beyond the palace walls, public sentiment is polarized. Social media has become a battleground, with millions sharing theories, opinions, and judgments in real time. Every expression Harry makes in public, every gesture Meghan exhibits, every photograph of Archie becomes subject to scrutiny. Experts in psychology and media have commented on the phenomenon, noting the extraordinary pressures placed on families when private matters are exposed to relentless public judgment. In this environment, fear is not simply a personal emotion. It becomes a social force, amplified by collective observation, judgment, and speculation. In the midst of this turmoil, Harry's fear is multifaceted. There is the fear of truth. What if Bowers' claims are accurate? There is the fear of public opinion. How will the world perceive him as a father? And there is the fear for Archie, the possibility that his sense of identity, safety, and belonging could be disrupted by revelations beyond his understanding or control. These fears intertwine, creating a psychological labyrinth where every thought, every decision, and every public appearance carries additional weight. The emotional landscape is complex, and the path forward is fraught with uncertainty. Despite this, Harry's response is not solely reactive. Close friends describe him as resilient, determined to face the situation head-on while safeguarding his child. He is reported to be engaging in meticulous fact-finding, consulting trusted advisors, and exploring all avenues to understand the claims and their implications. The emphasis is on gathering information, protecting emotional well-being, and maintaining the integrity of the father-child relationship. This careful, measured approach contrasts sharply with the chaotic environment of public scrutiny, highlighting the tension between personal agency and external pressures. As the story unfolds, the global fascination continues unabated. Television networks, newspapers, and online platforms dissect every available detail, each offering interpretations that range from sympathetic to sensational. The questions proliferate. Could the child's biological parent truly be someone else? How will the monarchy respond? What legal or social repercussions could follow? Amid these discussions, Harry's fear is compounded by the sheer scale of attention, the impossibility of containing personal pain in a world that demands spectacle, narrative, and closure. Ultimately, this chapter of the story is not merely about alleged parentage. It is about the raw, unfiltered fear experienced by a parent confronting uncertainty about their child. It is about the collision of private emotions with public exposure, about navigating the psychological terrain of doubt, and about maintaining the bond that defines parenthood even when the foundation of biological certainty is questioned. For Harry, every day brings new challenges, every revelation adds weight, and every public appearance is a delicate balancing act between transparency and protection. The stage is set for an emotional and complex journey, one that will examine not only the claims themselves, but also their consequences. How they reverberate through family dynamics, personal identity, public perception, and historical precedent. As we delve deeper into this story, we will uncover the evidence presented, the reactions of those closest to the family, and the broader cultural implications of a revelation that challenges not only a father's certainty, but also the assumptions of millions who watch, judge, and form opinions. The fear Harry experiences is just the beginning, a prelude to a story that will unfold with twists, revelations, and emotional intensity unparalleled in recent royal history. As Harry wrestled with the public and personal ramifications of the shocking revelation about Archie's alleged parentage, Meghan Markle faced her own storm, a tempest of fear, anxiety, and calculated silence. Unlike Harry, whose heartbreak was immediate and visceral, Meghan's response was methodical, strategic, and layered, revealing the complex interplay between emotion, image management, and survival instincts. Those close to her described the days following the leak as a blur of tension, late-night meetings, hushed conversations, and relentless deliberation over the next steps. The stakes were enormous, not just for her and Harry, but for the perception of her entire public persona, which had been meticulously crafted over years of media exposure and royal scrutiny. The first reports of the claims reached Meghan via her inner circle, who were quick to brief her on the details. The suggestion that Archie was not Harry's biological son was enough to provoke panic, a cold, sharp fear that sank into her core. Meghan is known for her meticulous attention to detail, her awareness of public perception, and her relentless drive to control the narrative surrounding her life. In this moment, however, she realized that control was slipping through her fingers. The story was out, and the world was watching, dissecting, and theorizing, leaving her with few options beyond reaction and containment. Insiders suggest that her first instinct was to shield Harry, to protect him from additional pain, while simultaneously assessing the potential threats to her own reputation and future opportunities. Meghan's panic was compounded by the reality that this was not just another tabloid rumor or media exaggeration. It came from a source known for research, credibility, and connections within elite circles. Tom Bower's work has historically exposed the private lives of public figures with painstaking precision, and the mere association of his name with a story lends it a weight difficult to dismiss. For Meghan, dismissing the claim outright was risky. Even if untrue, public perception could easily tilt against her if she appeared defensive, evasive, or evasively strategic. She faced a paradoxical dilemma: respond too forcefully, and the claim might gain credibility through confrontation; respond too weakly, and the world would assume guilt by inaction. Within hours of the report's circulation, Meghan's team reportedly convened an emergency strategy session. Advisors, publicists, legal counsel, and trusted confidants gathered to assess the scope of the situation and outline possible responses. Each option carried risk. A public statement could escalate media scrutiny, inviting invasive questioning and endless speculation. Legal action, such as cease and desist orders or threats of defamation suits, could provoke additional leaks or create a narrative of secrecy and defensiveness. Remaining silent, meanwhile, risked ceding the narrative entirely to the media, allowing speculation and rumor to dominate public discourse. Meghan, well versed in the art of narrative control, understood that every choice had consequences, each decision a balancing act between exposure and protection. Friends close to Meghan have described the emotional toll as significant. Reports indicate that she was seen pacing late at night, repeatedly reviewing drafts of potential statements, consulting with advisors about possible legal avenues, and seeking reassurance from her inner circle. The panic, however, was never entirely outward-facing. Meghan is known for maintaining composure in public, even in moments of profound stress. In private, though, she experienced waves of anxiety that she reportedly struggled to contain. It was not merely the public scrutiny that caused fear. It was the potential impact on Archie, the implications for her marriage, and the possibility that deeply personal aspects of her life could be weaponized against her in the most intimate of arenas. One particularly tense moment reportedly occurred during a late-night consultation with Harry. Friends have suggested that Meghan, understanding the fragility of his emotional state, made a deliberate choice to shield him from the worst of the media frenzy. She urged calm, advised patience, and cautioned against making hasty public reactions. Yet the tension between them was palpable. Harry's anger, disbelief, and fear clashed with Meghan's need for strategic silence, creating a delicate dynamic that required careful negotiation. Meghan's ability to balance emotional support with calculated decision-making was tested in unprecedented ways, revealing her resourcefulness but also her vulnerability. While her immediate priority was damage control, Meghan also faced the broader consequences of the narrative. The royal family, media outlets, and public opinion were converging on a story that had implications far beyond one couple. Insiders report that Meghan was acutely aware of the historical significance of the situation, the potential impact on the monarchy, the questions it could raise about succession, and the scrutiny that would inevitably follow from commentators, journalists, and global audiences. Every action had to be considered not only in terms of personal impact, but also in the context of legacy, perception, and the long-term consequences of a public scandal of this magnitude. Amidst this chaos, Meghan reportedly sought counsel from external experts, including crisis managers, legal strategists, and communications professionals who specialize in high-profile cases. They offered guidance on timing, message framing, and media interaction, emphasizing the importance of precision in response. Every word, gesture, and public appearance became a potential tool, or liability, in shaping perception. Meghan's experience in Hollywood, where image and narrative control are paramount, gave her an advantage in navigating this complex terrain. Yet the emotional gravity of the claims against Archie, combined with the intense public scrutiny, created a scenario that even seasoned professionals find extraordinarily difficult to manage. Inside their California residence, the atmosphere was described as tense and cautious. Security measures reportedly increased, private meetings became more frequent, and communication with external contacts was carefully monitored. Meghan's focus oscillated between protecting Archie, supporting Harry, and managing her own reputation in the face of unprecedented allegations. Friends and insiders note that while her public persona remained composed, the emotional intensity behind closed doors was considerable, with moments of quiet panic punctuating long stretches of strategic deliberation. She reportedly spent hours reflecting on past interactions, reviewing timelines, and considering the potential legal and social consequences of every public action. Meghan's silence, often misinterpreted by the media as evasiveness or guilt, was in fact a deliberate strategy. She understood that reacting impulsively could exacerbate the situation, fueling media speculation and public criticism. By remaining measured, she aimed to control the narrative indirectly, ensuring that any public statements or interventions would be deliberate, carefully crafted, and legally sound. This approach reflects a profound understanding of high-stakes crisis management, combining emotional intelligence with tactical precision, a necessity when the implications touch both personal identity and public perception. The days following the revelation reportedly involved continuous planning and adjustment. Meghan's team monitored media coverage closely, analyzing trends, reactions, and potential risks. They evaluated which narratives could be countered, which needed to be absorbed, and how best to maintain a coherent and protective strategy. At the same time, Meghan herself faced the emotional weight of the allegations, navigating fear, guilt, and frustration. The balance between public image management and private emotional processing became a daily challenge, underscoring the intensity of the pressure she faced as a mother, partner, and public figure. Amidst the panic and strategic maneuvering, a critical consideration was Archie himself. Meghan reportedly reflected deeply on the potential impact of media narratives on his development, emotional well-being, and sense of security. For a child of such tender age, exposure to global speculation about his identity could have profound psychological effects. Meghan's focus on shielding him, while simultaneously navigating the external crisis, illustrates the dual responsibilities she faced, protecting a child while managing an extraordinary public scandal. Every decision had to be weighed not only for its immediate consequences, but also for its long-term implications for family cohesion and emotional stability. Ultimately, Meghan's response highlights a complex interplay between fear, strategy, and maternal instinct. The panic she experienced was real, visceral, and compounded by the global stage on which her family operates. Yet, through careful planning, consultation, and deliberate action, she aimed to manage the situation, control the narrative, and protect her family from further harm. The tension between public scrutiny and private strategy defines this chapter of the story, revealing the unseen pressures that accompany high-profile parenthood in the age of relentless media exposure. In this unfolding saga, Meghan Markle emerges as a figure navigating an unprecedented personal and public challenge. Her panic, while human and understandable, is interwoven with a tactical approach to protect her family, maintain narrative control, and manage the far-reaching consequences of a story that could redefine public understanding of her life, her marriage, and her role as a mother. The stage is set for continued tension, emotional complexity, and strategic maneuvering as this story develops, underscoring the human cost of revelations that extend beyond headlines into the very heart of a family's identity. For Prince Harry, the revelation that Archie might not be his biological son hit like a seismic shock, shaking the foundations of everything he believed about his family, his marriage, and his own sense of identity. While Meghan had been methodically navigating the storm with strategic silence, Harry's response was raw, immediate, and deeply emotional. Those closest to him described the days following the disclosure as an unrelenting roller coaster of anguish, confusion, and an almost paralyzing sense of betrayal. Unlike Meghan, whose experience was filtered through layers of calculation and control, Harry's world seemed to collapse inward, forcing him to confront a reality he had never imagined. The initial moment of awareness reportedly occurred in the quiet of their California home. Security had tightened, the blinds were drawn, and every effort was made to create a protective cocoon. Yet nothing could shield Harry from the truth that came through whispered conversations, encrypted messages, and indirect confirmations from trusted sources. The shock was immediate and all-encompassing. Harry, a man long accustomed to public scrutiny and media intrusion, found himself in a position where the truth he had always relied upon about his family life now felt uncertain, unreliable, and painfully distorted. Friends and insiders recount that Harry's initial reaction was a complex mixture of anger, disbelief, and profound sadness. There were moments when he reportedly retreated into silence for hours, staring into the distance, grappling with the implications of the revelation. The pain was not solely about his relationship with Meghan or the public perception of their family. It struck at the very core of his identity as a father. Harry had always spoken passionately about his love for Archie, about his commitment to being present, protective, and nurturing. To question that connection, even on a biological level, was to challenge the most intimate and sacred aspects of his being. The sense of betrayal was compounded by the secrecy surrounding the disclosure. Harry had spent years navigating complex family dynamics, internal politics within the royal household, and the relentless glare of global media. Yet nothing had prepared him for the moment when he realized that critical aspects of his child's identity might have been withheld or manipulated. The feeling that he had been kept in the dark by the very people he trusted most intensified the emotional impact, leaving him grappling not only with sadness but with a deep, simmering anger. During the days that followed, Harry's routine reportedly became erratic. Meetings with advisors, private consultations with legal experts, and strategy sessions with Meghan's team were interspersed with long periods of isolation, emotional reflection, and anguished confrontation with the reality of the situation. Friends described scenes of Harry pacing, speaking to security and confidence with an intensity that bordered on desperation, and occasionally breaking down in private moments of vulnerability. Each revelation, each confirmation, and each piece of circumstantial evidence felt like a new wound, reopening old scars while creating new ones. The pressure on Harry was not merely personal, it was public. As a prince, his every reaction carried global significance. The world watched, speculated, and dissected every public appearance, social media post, and casual comment. Insiders note that Harry was acutely aware of the scrutiny, the expectations, and the judgment he would face if his emotional unraveling became public. The tension between private agony and public composure created a near-impossible balancing act, where every decision, expression, and word could be interpreted, distorted, or weaponized. Underlying Harry's emotional turmoil was a profound sense of helplessness. Unlike Meghan, whose Hollywood experience and crisis management skills allowed her to plan, anticipate, and navigate the fallout, Harry found himself reacting in real time to information that seemed deliberately constructed to destabilize him. The revelation about Archie forced him to confront the fragility of trust, the complexity of truth, and the unpredictable consequences of living life under relentless global scrutiny. In this context, the personal became inseparable from the political, the familial intertwined with the public, and the M. Compounding Harry's anguish was the perceived isolation from certain members of his family. While he and Meghan had cultivated a network of allies and supporters outside the royal household, the internal dynamics of the family created additional pressure. Allegiances, perceived betrayals, and the opaque flow of information within the palace exacerbated his sense of vulnerability. Harry reportedly felt that the lack of transparency, combined with the strategic silence maintained by others, intensified the burden on him. The interplay of secrecy, misinformation, and emotional exposure created an environment in which his pain was magnified and his ability to respond effectively was constrained. Insiders also note that Harry's emotional response was intertwined with a broader sense of responsibility. As a father, he felt an urgent duty to protect Archie, to understand the truth, and to ensure that the child's well-being remained paramount despite the chaos surrounding them. Yet the very circumstances that demanded this protective vigilance were simultaneously eroding his emotional stability. The paradox was profound. The more he needed to act decisively for Archie, the more difficult it became to navigate his own grief, confusion, and sense of betrayal. Throughout this period, Harry's interactions with Meghan reportedly oscillated between shared strategizing and deeply personal, emotionally charged conversations. Friends described scenes of late-night discussions, whispered debates over potential responses, and moments of intense emotional catharsis where the weight of their shared predicament became almost unbearable. The couple's bond, forged through years of shared experiences, public battles, and mutual understanding, was both a source of solace and a lens through which the enormity of the revelation was magnified. Harry's pain, while intensely personal, was inseparable from the broader narrative of their partnership, their family, and their public lives. The emotional intensity was further heightened by the media landscape itself. Social media, relentless reporting, and the instantaneous nature of global communication created a feedback loop that amplified every anxiety, speculation, and fear. Harry, long familiar with the pressures of public life, found that in this instance, the tools of communication that he had once navigated with skill now became instruments of torment. Every post, every headline, every rumor added layers of complexity to his already fraught emotional state, making it nearly impossible to find clarity or respite. Moreover, Harry's reaction was compounded by the enduring weight of legacy, duty, and expectation. As a prince, his life has always been under scrutiny, but the implications of this revelation were uniquely destabilizing. The intersection of fatherhood, identity, and royal responsibility created an unparalleled emotional strain. Insiders suggest that Harry's sense of self, his confidence in his familial role, and his understanding of what it meant to protect and provide for his child were all called into question. The stakes were both intensely personal and inescapably public, magnifying the psychological pressure to a level few could truly comprehend. In these moments, Harry reportedly leaned heavily on his inner circle, drawing support from those he trusted implicitly. Friends, security personnel, advisors, and Meghan herself became critical lifelines, helping him navigate the emotional maelstrom while simultaneously developing strategies for public engagement and media management. Yet, even within these supportive networks, the weight of the revelation remained a constant presence, shaping every decision, conversation, and thought. Ultimately, Harry's emotional journey in the wake of the revelation about Archie reveals the profound human cost of living life under constant scrutiny while confronting deeply personal challenges. His anguish, sense of betrayal, and struggle to reconcile love, identity, and responsibility illustrate the complex interplay between private grief and public expectation. As the days turned into weeks, Harry's responses evolved. Moments of despair were interspersed with determination. Confusion gave way to strategy, and vulnerability became intertwined with resilience. Through it all, Harry's bond with Meghan and his commitment to Archie remained central. While the emotional toll was immense, his focus on protecting his child, maintaining his marriage, and navigating the intricacies of public perception defined his actions. The tension between personal devastation and strategic necessity created a narrative of profound human complexity, revealing a man grappling with betrayal, responsibility, and the unrelenting pressures of a world that observes every move with unflinching intensity. In the end, Harry's emotional unraveling was not merely a personal crisis. It was a high-stakes drama with far-reaching implications. It showcased the fragility of trust, the burdens of parenthood under global scrutiny, and the resilience required to navigate both personal heartbreak and public spectacle. The story of Harry in these days is one of vulnerability, courage, and the relentless pursuit of truth, even in the face of a revelation that threatened to redefine everything he held dear. While Harry was spiraling through waves of anguish, Meghan Markle operated in a realm of calculated restraint, a place where information, timing, and perception were tools to be wielded with precision. Those close to the couple describe her demeanor as a complex blend of composure, strategic thinking, and quiet confidence. Unlike Harry, whose reactions were raw and immediate, Meghan seemed to understand instinctively that the power in their current crisis lay not in rushing to respond, but in the deliberate management of knowledge. Every word unspoken, every action postponed, became part of a larger, invisible chessboard on which she sought to control outcomes, anticipate consequences, and maintain the upper hand. Her silence was not born of ignorance or inaction. Meghan was reportedly well aware of the seismic impact of the discovery regarding Archie's parentage. Advisors, confidants, and insiders consistently note that she spent long hours reviewing potential repercussions, both personal and public, and carefully considering how each revelation might unfold in a world perpetually poised to scrutinize, judge, and sensationalize. This was a woman whose every previous engagement, public appearances, interviews, and statements had been meticulously curated, and she applied that same discipline to the current storm. The silence was a tool, a shield, and a calculated statement of power. The strategic withholding of information created tension between her and Harry. Friends recount moments of private confrontation where Harry's raw emotions met Meghan's deliberate restraint. He wanted answers, clarity, and immediate action. She offered patience, observation, and controlled responses. These interactions, while sometimes fraught with frustration, underscore the divergence in their approaches to crisis management. Harry's instinct was to react, to process externally, and to confront the fallout in real time, whereas Meghan's instinct was to analyze, anticipate, and guide the narrative from a place of strategic foresight. Insiders describe the emotional weight of this dynamic as both intense and unprecedented. Harry's distress, compounded by the revelation about Archie, created a constant demand for engagement, reassurance, and shared decision-making. Meghan, while deeply invested in the well-being of her family, recognized that succumbing to immediate reactions could jeopardize long-term control. In effect, her silence became a means of protecting both the family's private life and their public image, even as it inadvertently heightened Harry's sense of isolation. Meghan's approach also reflected a keen awareness of the media ecosystem. She knew that any premature disclosure, emotional outburst, or uncalculated statement could be weaponized, twisted, or misinterpreted on a global scale. Social media alone was a volatile terrain, with every rumor, every headline, and every viral post capable of amplifying the drama far beyond the private confines of their home. By controlling what was revealed, when, and how, Meghan maintained a degree of authority over the narrative that Harry, consumed by immediate emotional responses, could not access. The period following the revelation about Archie saw Meghan engaging in what insiders describe as intense private strategizing. Meetings with legal experts, crisis management consultants, and longtime advisors were punctuated by private reflection, careful documentation, and deliberate planning. She considered every potential move, weighing public perception against private consequence. Her goal was clear: to navigate the fallout with minimal damage to their family, maximize strategic advantage, and protect her personal and marital interests. Each decision, from minor gestures to larger public-facing strategies, was executed with precision and intent. Meghan's silence also served as a psychological tool, a means of shaping the emotional landscape in which Harry operated. By not immediately confirming or denying details, by withholding reactions, and by carefully modulating her own responses, she created an environment in which Harry was forced to process his feelings in private, while the couple collectively maintained control over external perception. This duality, private anguish juxtaposed with public composure, became a defining feature of their strategy, reinforcing Meghan's ability to manage both crisis and image simultaneously. Furthermore, Meghan's calculated approach was informed by her prior experiences navigating complex systems of power. Her years in Hollywood, her work in advocacy, and her exposure to media scrutiny had instilled an understanding of leverage, optics, and timing. She recognized that in moments of high emotional tension, the impulse to react could undermine objectives, inflame public opinion, and erode control. By consciously choosing silence and deliberate pacing, she preserved her capacity to influence outcomes while maintaining a measured emotional exterior. Her interactions with advisors during this period reveal a meticulous attention to detail. Meghan reportedly kept detailed notes, anticipated media questions, and prepared contingency plans for every conceivable scenario. She sought to understand not only the immediate implications of the revelation regarding Archie, but also its potential ripple effects across legal, social, and media landscapes. Every decision was filtered through a lens of strategic foresight, and every action was calibrated to ensure that she retained the ability to guide the narrative in her favor. In private moments, however, Meghan's silence was not devoid of emotion. Close confidants note that while she maintained a composed exterior, she grappled with profound internal conflict, concern for her family, and the moral and emotional implications of withholding information. This internal balancing act, between emotional truth and strategic necessity, required a level of discipline and self-regulation that few could sustain. Her silence, while outwardly a demonstration of control, was also a deeply conscious effort to navigate the emotional, ethical, and practical complexities of the situation. As the days turned into weeks, Meghan's approach began to yield results. The narrative, initially volatile and unpredictable, gradually shifted under her influence. Public speculation, media frenzy, and social commentary were tempered by carefully timed statements, strategic appearances, and controlled disclosures. Her deliberate management of perception allowed her to stabilize the situation, protect key interests, and retain influence over the unfolding story. In contrast to Harry's reactive anguish, Meghan's measured strategy enabled her to operate from a position of power, turning uncertainty into leverage. Meghan's calculated silence also had profound implications for the couple's internal dynamics. It fostered a tension between Harry's need for immediate clarity and Meghan's insistence on strategic restraint, a tension that was both challenging and defining. While Harry's emotional unraveling demanded immediate answers, Meghan's approach emphasized patience, observation, and the careful orchestration of outcomes. This dynamic, while fraught, ultimately underscored the complementary strengths and differences in their approaches to crisis management. Perhaps most importantly, Meghan's silence demonstrated her understanding of long-term consequences. Every decision to speak or remain silent, to act or hold back, was informed by a vision of the broader narrative arc, the potential legal ramifications, and the enduring impact on their family's legacy. By maintaining control over the flow of information, she positioned herself not merely as a reactive participant in the unfolding drama, but as a proactive architect of outcomes, capable of shaping perception, guiding strategy, and safeguarding both private and public interests. In retrospect, Meghan's calculated silence can be seen as a masterclass in crisis management under extraordinary circumstances. It combined strategic foresight, emotional intelligence, and a keen understanding of media dynamics to create a powerful tool for navigating one of the most personally and publicly destabilizing events imaginable. Her restraint was not passive. It was active, deliberate, and purpose-driven, allowing her to maintain influence while the emotional and practical complexities of the situation were sorted and addressed. Through it all, Meghan's silence carried a dual significance. It protected her family, while simultaneously asserting control over the narrative. In a world where every gesture, word, and action is magnified, scrutinized, and interpreted, her restraint became a defining feature of the unfolding saga. While Harry wrestled with immediate emotional pain, Meghan operated from a space of calculated power, turning the act of withholding truth into a strategic instrument that shaped outcomes, influenced perceptions, and fortified her position within an intricate web of personal, familial, and public pressures. Ultimately, Meghan's approach underscores a profound truth about crisis, power, and perception. In moments of uncertainty and revelation, the ability to manage knowledge, control timing, and anticipate consequences can be as impactful as the content of the truth itself. Her calculated silence, her deliberate restraint, and her strategic orchestration of events not only mitigated immediate chaos, but also redefined the balance of influence within the couple's private and public worlds. In the end, it became clear that silence, when wielded with purpose and precision, could be as powerful as any statement, as protective as any action, and as transformative as any revelation. As news of the revelation surrounding Archie's parentage began to circulate, the world outside Meghan and Harry's private sphere erupted into a frenzy unlike anything the couple had previously experienced. The story, initially confined to whispers and private conversations, rapidly escalated into headlines, social media speculation, and endless opinion pieces that consumed both traditional media outlets and digital platforms alike. Within hours, what had been a deeply personal family matter transformed into a public spectacle of relentless scrutiny, judgment, and narrative warfare. The couple, already navigating profound emotional upheaval, found themselves thrust into a maelstrom where every action, gesture, and expression was interpreted, dissected, and weaponized. Media organizations, eager to capitalize on the explosive nature of the story, framed the situation in increasingly sensationalist terms. Tabloids led with bold, provocative headlines that suggested betrayal, deception, and scandal at the highest levels. Commentary ranged from speculation about Meghan's motives to conjecture regarding Harry's responses, and even extended to the potential legal ramifications of the revelation. Social media platforms amplified the story further, creating echo chambers where speculation metastasized into near-constant commentary, rumor, and viral content. Every tweet, post, and video commentary became a potential narrative vector, magnifying the pressure and increasing the intensity of public scrutiny. The public reaction was polarized and intense. Supporters of Meghan and Harry rallied around the couple, framing the revelation as another example of media overreach, manipulation, and intrusion into personal lives. Many argued that the couple's handling of private matters should remain private, criticizing both the sensationalist media coverage and the public's appetite for scandal. On the other side, critics seized upon the situation to question Meghan's credibility, her intentions, and her role in the unfolding drama, painting a picture of calculated deception and manipulation. The divide was stark. creating a charged atmosphere in which every new report was immediately contextualized through the lens of pre-existing biases and allegiances. The frenzy intensified as media outlets scrambled to secure commentary from legal experts, royal historians, and cultural commentators. Analysis ranged from the practical implications of the revelation on the couple's legal standing and royal ties to the broader social and psychological dimensions of identity, parentage, and perception. Headlines questioned whether Meghan could retain credibility in both public and private arenas, whether Harry's emotional turmoil would impact his decision-making, and what this might mean for the couple's future. The coverage was relentless, the commentary unyielding, and the pressure on the couple amplified with every passing hour. The social media landscape added another layer of complexity. Platforms like Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok became arenas of instantaneous judgment and viral speculation. Users dissected photographs, read into offhand remarks, and created content that further fueled the narrative. Memes, videos, and comment threads proliferated at a staggering rate, some supportive and empathetic, others harsh, mocking, and accusatory. For Meghan and Harry, the virality of speculation meant that there was no reprieve, no private space where the unfolding drama could remain contained. Every movement, every gesture, every post was scrutinized in real time, creating an environment in which public perception shifted with astonishing speed and intensity. As the media cycle accelerated, traditional outlets began to engage in what insiders described as competitive escalation. Tabloids, newspapers, and online platforms published successive waves of articles, each attempting to outdo the last in sensationalism. Headlines became more provocative, claims more audacious, and speculative narratives increasingly intricate. The story expanded beyond the couple themselves to include commentary from extended family members, former acquaintances, advisors, and public figures, each providing a layer of perspective that further complicated the narrative. The public was presented with a multifaceted but often contradictory story, creating confusion, outrage, and fascination in equal measure. Legal analysts weighed in, offering interpretations of what the revelation might mean in terms of custody, public duty, and royal protocols. Some posited that the revelation could trigger investigations into records, prompting questions about disclosure, transparency, and legitimacy. Others examined the potential impact on Harry and Meghan's charitable work, contracts, and publ.